Hello, in this video I'll show you how to test the journal entry setups using the utility called Journal Entry Analyzer. So if we navigate to Tools, Data Utilities, Journal Entry Analyzer, we can create a record. Let's give it a name, demo, and create the analyzer record. Then we'll find the lease on which we want to test whether it is pulling the data for the specific journal entry setups or not. Then let me find the setups that I want to test. I want to test it for operating lease classification, for new lease trigger subtype, and those journal entry setups which are in active status. So this is pulling three journal entry setups. Let me select these, and for all these setups, these are the 6 calculation variables that are tied to these journal entry setups. Now the problem is that if I open each and every journal entry setup, I get a view of input 1 and input 2 and the corresponding source field names. We can also take a look at the consolidated list of all the calculation variables by going to the master list of all calculation variables here. So if I want to see whether I have the new lease trigger subtype journal entry setups, so I'll get a list of all the setups for new lease activation. If I want to find out for standard adopted, it'll give me the filtered list for all the standard adopted setups. So the benefit is that we need not open each and every setup to take a look at the calculation variable being used. Coming back to the setups, now if I click on compute, it'll calculate the values of these fields for these particular calculation source and calculation periods from the lease that I have selected here. This is an asynchronous workflow, so if I refresh the section, it has pulled all the 6 input variables here. Now I can clearly see that for input 1s it is showing me some values, but input 2s have failed because of the exclamation mark being shown here. Now it means that these 3 input 2 variables will need some thought process that why did it not pull any data. In order to assist with this, we have a tab called field placing, where we have a visual view of the field names, field label, and the section where they belong. On all these subtabs, these are the calculation sources. So if, for example, we have an operating schedule calculation source, we can check that whether the field names shown here match with what we have in the input variables here. So clearly we can see that the correct field name here is try current term SL rent and new as shown here, and the correct calculation source here needs to be operating schedule. This is all based on the values we have on the fields placing. The source data value and the cumulative data source value is based on the cumulative from period, and the values are pulled from the lease above. So for example, the current term SL rent NU on the straight line schedule is shown as 253, and the asset value from the operating schedule is shown as 8,054. So let's go ahead on the lease and confirm whether this is the right data or not. So I open my lease, I go to the accounting tab, and my straight line schedule, the rent is shown as 258, and if I scroll to bottom, the operating schedule for my third period from the start date of the lease is 8054. So we have confirmed that these are the correct values that we want. So it means that my input 1 variables are correct. And once I make the requisite changes on the input 2s, so my these three journal entry setups will give the appropriate data for this lease. So in the same way, like even before we create the lease for activation or for standard adoption, we can use the journal entry analyzer to confirm whether the setups are giving us the right values or not.